said to them when we were walking along in private, why is it that he didn't get selected for the Sungyunwan? And they in effect said, yeah, wasn't that some ripoff? You know. And they said, in effect, it's all political, don't you know? So Namyoung is on the cusp of being admitted to the Sungyunwan, but he was admitted to the Sungyunwan, okay? One of the 18 scholars enshrined at the Sungyunwan, okay? He was a prominent Neo-Confucian scholar in the 16th century. Tosin, his pioneering thinking influenced Yi Huang. Who's Yi Huang?
Great scholar.
Tege.
I knew I said that right after.
Who is known as Korea's Jushi? Who's Jushi?
Jushi?
If Yi Huang is Korea's Jushi, who's Jushi? An Hyang was the scholar that brought Jushi to Korea. Okay? So you got it halfway there. When we went to the Sosu one, that was where An Hyang brought Jushi to Korea. And where Chu Se-bung, who built the shrine to An Hyang, Chu Se-bung had gone to China and seen Jushi's shrine and said, hey, we need one like that here. We need a So-one here. So the whole idea of So-one is copying Jushi in China. And who's Jushi? The father of Neo-Confucianism. Okay. So Korea's Jushi. Eonjuk is enshrined at Chongnyo Royal Shrine in Seoul. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the first 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, right? Now wait a minute. That's a shrine for the kings. What's a scholar like this doing there? In each of the king's shrine, they enshrined 1 or 2 of the great scholars that worked with him. So he was one of the best scholars at the time of his king, and the king had him enshrined with him, okay? The king was Myeongjong. Myeongjong was also the king during the time of Namyoung, our Doksan So-won guy, our Doksan So-won. And this academy was founded by Lee Jae-min, magistrate of Myeongju, at the request of local literati. In 1574, King Sunjo bestowed a hanging board on this private academy, inscribed in his own hand with the 4 Chinese characters Oksan So-won. Why is that significant that the king did it?
Because it would be preserved as the 47.
Later, when they destroyed all but 47, this was one of the 47. Thenceforth, known by this name, Oksan So-won is one of the royally chartered, because the king signed the board, private academies. In 1871, Haewon-gun, the father of King Kojong, shuttered all but 47 private academies across the country. Oksan and So-won is one of the 47 that survived. Oksan So-won is representative of the early style of academic architecture. Okay, the gate leads to, okay. Eonjuk then was one of the great scholars of the Joseon period, and this is one of the great So-won. And we always like to come here across the bridge, because when I first came here, we came across the bridge. But you know what? We could have driven right up here.
Well, good choice.
But it's a lot nicer to come this way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It's way cool. And you can see some frogs. Let's go inside. Korea.
Ooh.
Ku.
What is this the way?
So Ku is the seek
Okay.
to search for, and what are you searching for? Een. Goodness, right? Okay. So you search for Een here in the scholarly room. Now let's go up behind here and see the rest of the space. We'll come back here and sit and have a lesson in a minute. We haven't talked about the front part, the educational part. And so this is the point where we want to talk about the Korean educational system, traditional Korean educational system. And the purpose of education here, and what are these people studying? What are they studying for? You know, the test, yeah. It's like today, everything's for the test. And what's the test?
Sunum.
Yeah, it's Sunung. Yeah, it is the Sunung. The old test used to be called the Munkwa. And the Munkwa was the civil exam. And to pass the Munkwa was a big deal. There were about 30 people that passed every year. So it was sort of a creme de la creme, you know. And when you passed, your name would be inscribed in a book of those that passed that year. In other words, those are you and your Tongchang, you know. And so today they have Tongchang meetings still. We have alumni meetings of our alumni, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have your high school alumni meetings?
Mine was supposed to be this summer.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Do you have high school alumni meetings?
Every 10 years.
Every 10 years? Jeez Louise, in 2 years I got my 50th coming up. Oh boy. But,
Are you the most successful person in your graduating class?
oh, by far.
Okay.
And so, if
You didn't go to high school.
if you have
Keeper.
if you have a alumni meeting once every 10 years, the way my class does, how often do Koreans have alumni meetings?
Every 20.
60.
Every 12.
Every year.
12
Every
years.
month.
What?
Every month.
Called it, yeah.
Did you know that? You're just being exaggerating and
I
had
knew
no
that.
idea that it was true. There are alumni groups that have monthly meetings, and not everyone comes every month. And they're sort of the monthly meetings, with the yearly meeting's a big meeting, and everybody comes to that. But they're monthly luncheons, fourth Thursday, whatever, a certain shikdang, a Uchiro saga, and come by if you can. And some people come by 3 or 4 times a year. Some people are there every time. Some people show up once every other fourth year, you know. Once in a while there's a classmate that went off to America, and she'll come back and show up and come to the meeting. I talked about this here the last time I was here 2 months ago. And as we were leaving, I'm walking down the steps, and a group of women came in, all the same age. Looks like an alumni meeting, alumni travel group. And one of the women said, and I just saw there's a bunch of older women, Korean women, and all of a sudden one of them cried out, "Peterson 교수님." And it was the wife of one of my old friends. It was the wife of Heather and Ted, that man we met at lunch that day at the Soul Club.
The Soul Club?
It was his wife here.
You try to June me off, Joy?
Yeah, I tried to jug me off Joy
I remember that.
to his son. He was one handsome boy.
He was like 39.
Well, that's just an illustration of how the idea of the classmate goes way back to the idea of who passes the exam at the same time. And they actually printed it in a book. It was printed on movable type. And I've got 2 of them. I showed you in my culture class, both of them. And, they're quite precious documents. But it shows how significant this group was traditionally. And the idea was you help each other. You pass the exams, and as you move up the ranks, you recommend your other classmates for positions along the way. And you help each other along. So this idea of classmate and helping each other has deep, deep roots in Korea. The idea of passing the exam to be somebody has deep, deep roots in Korea. The idea of students demonstrating, because students are the conscience of the country, have deep, deep roots in Korea. When we were at the Sungyungban, I mentioned that the Sungyungban students would go on strike if they heard of something immoral that was going on in the government. They wanted the king to take action. Okay, so you've got the examination system, and the educational system is geared toward the examination system. What was the exam like? What were the questions on the exam?
Wasn't it like essay questions?
It was all essay. Well, there were essays and there was a poem. You could write in poem, in verse, or you could write an essay. And usually the question, for the poem question, it would be often just one character. You had to build your rhyme around that. The essay question very often cited one small quotation from the Analects or from the Chunchu or from the classical poetry, and you had to respond to that, showing you understood it. You recognized that you understood the context of it, and you could write something intelligent about that. We talked about Yorgok when we were at the palace. We talked about how Yorgok was sent to China on a diplomatic mission, then came back. Sent to China on a diplomatic mission to say the king had died, and then came back and was commissioned as one of the scholars to write up the official history.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I was going to make another point about that. But at any rate, that's you take the exams to succeed in life. And I remember what I was going to say. When we talked about Yulgok, I pointed out that he took 9 exams and took first place in all 9 exams. Just unbelievable. What are the 9 exams then? The Munhwa is the highest. There were 3 exams for that. Then there was a secondary exam that's called collectively the Sama exam. Sama is the surname of two famous historians from China, Sima Qian and Sima Guang. They're the two first historians of China. So this exam is named after them. And Sima comes out in Korean, the Sama exams. And the Sama exams, there were two. There was the Sengwon and the Jinsa. Jinsa, it's funny because in China, Jinsa is the highest exam, the Jinshi. So if you read something Chinese history and talk about someone passing the Jinshi.
Gina Jeansher.
Gina, did you pass the Jinshi?
Yeah.
Gina
So-
Twice.
wouldn't pass the Jeansher.
So the Jinshi was the highest in China, but in Korea the Jinsa was one of the secondary exams, the Jinsa and the Sengwon. The Sengwon, I think it was poetry, and the Jinsa was prose. One was poetry and one was prose.
What's the Gene Saba?
Sengwon. Sengwon, yeah. In the whole Joseon dynasty, 500 years, there were 14,562 people or something like that. 14,562, I think that's right. People that passed the Munhwa exam. That's about 30 a year. That's pretty elite stuff. And it's a big deal to study and pass the exam. We've seen some museums, the plumes, the special plumes that you wear for the one that took first place in the exam. Big deal to pass the exam. The Sama exam, there were 100 Jinsa and 100 Sengwon that passed every 3 years. Altogether, 35,000 people passed the exam. So that's a little more higher percentage. But the Sengwon and Jinsa didn't move that high up in the officialdom very often. They wouldn't get to the higher ranks like the Munhwa passers did. So those three exams mark the civil exam system, okay? And that's Moon. And on the Mu side, and the Moon and the Mu make what? Moon and Mu together make what? When you're standing in front of the palace and you see the two sets of tombstones, and the Moon lining up on one side and the Mu lining up on the other side, what are the